Frederickson is going to be joining us on Monday. St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist and the newest member of the KTRS sports staff. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good. I love what you did in the paper. I don't know when it was posted, but you picked the 10 best and the 10 worst free agents signings in the DeWitt era.
Yeah, we do that. Actually did that a couple of years ago, and I've kind of updated it since. And I got to tell you, they're when you really get down to the worst of them, there aren't too many. And the worst one, I think, happened this past year with Mike Leake. It's very, very seldom that the Cardinals end up admitting they made a bad deal and actually paying a guy to go away. And that's what they had to do with Mike Leake. But after that, it's a pretty thin list.
You know what? I think it's fascinating because you're right. I think you can argue it's worst, second worst, third worst, but the amount of bad money the DeWitt ownership group has thrown away on bad players, any team in the country would want that list of money that was wasted.
No, you're absolutely right. And you even look at a guy like Sung-Won Oh, for example, who first, last impression here, and I don't think they'll probably bring him back in this free agent year, but he didn't have a great he had a good first year, a bad second year, and you go, okay, well, you write him off as a net neutral. Well, not really. I mean, they only paid him $5 million. And so they paid him $2.5 a year. He had an outstanding first year, and he still was reliable at points this last season. And he also opened up kind of their eyes to the Korean market, which could be in play again this year. So when you look at it big picture, you say, man, that was a good signing. They don't waste a lot of money. It's been one of the kind of the staples under the leadership, which makes a deal like the Mike Leake deal all that more surprising when they were willing to cut their losses and not see if he could bounce back.
Yeah. One of the ones that I thought was very interesting was Bobby Bonilla, considered one of the worst, right? They only paid him $900,000. The best thing that ever happened to him was he hurt his ankle, which then gave up a roster spot for a young left fielder named Albert Pujols.
Yeah, that turned out okay, I think. And you look, and that Pujols guy turned out to be a pretty good player for the Cardinals. But yeah, it's like a Ty Wigginton, some of these guys were paid to go away, but you look at what they were actually making and you put it in comparison, and there's some pretty shrewd moves that were a lot better than the few they had to cut their losses on. That's for sure.
Some of these names: Sidney Ponson, Kip Wells. Some of the names are, it's sort of like an old home week. Adam Kennedy. I mean, they're not the greatest, and some of them washed out. But Bobby Bonilla is still getting paid by the Mets $5 million every July 4th for the next 30 years.
Yeah, it's an annual holiday, I think, to remind. Annually, we are reminded of that. Yeah, and I think a lot of times as fans and as people who just consume baseball, we kind of forget to factor in the business side, right? So, it's like, oh, that guy's terrible. Why is he on the team? Well, when you factor in the amount of money that he's making, the amount of money per year, sometimes those deals don't look bad, or they look way worse. Like a Brett Cecil, for example, he had a very bad year in his first year as a Cardinal, and if he doesn't rebound and have better 3 years after this, then that deal's not going to look very good because they paid him more than $30 million.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to put it in comparison as to what they make over the course of their career or the contract.
And this is real. It's really interesting to go back and look. All these people complaining about how Matheny doesn't do it right, Mo doesn't do it right, Jocketty didn't do it right, La Russa didn't do it right. There's a lot of one-year contracts on this list, and any person in management will tell you there's no such thing as a bad one-year contract.
Yeah, you bet. And some of those guys were even, good for parts of it. So,
yeah.
When you're looking for the Cardinals' worst deals of the DeWitt era, you kind of look and say, man, you're really looking at some risks that they were comfortable taking, and they ended up not really biting them too much. But, I'll say this. We talked last week about Stanton and the idea of could the Cardinals go big, and are they tired of, quote-unquote, finishing second? They're in a spot now where there's pressure to make a deal that could have a lot of risk. When you're having to acquire a middle of the order bat from outside the organization, probably via trade, there are risks. So the Cardinals are kind of anti-risk, and it's behooved them. I mean, look at the record. The record speaks for itself over the years, but the past couple of years have been telling them that they got to get better. So now, you have to wonder, they're up against kind of this rock and a hard place. Are they going to shift in their mentality, or are they going to shift their expectations? Something at some point has got to give here.
Oh, I want to be on the record that I'm against giving up anything for Stanton. The money or the prospects, it's just not worth it. It will. Right. One of the best things that ever happened to this team was Pujols signing with the Angels. Right, that freed up money to keep Wainwright and Molina, and to use it in other places to have another mini run after Pujols left.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that contract, not giving Albert that contract, it was the right move, and I know that's not a disrespect to Albert as a player. He should have a statue here. He'll be on the wall here. He should be, hopefully he'll be remembered as a Cardinal. When he enters the Hall of Fame. But that being said, the Cardinals have more money now than they've ever had. They have resources that are only going to continue to grow with the TV contract. And they have a fan base that is sold the expectation of being in the postseason every year. So the Cardinals are not, I don't think, going to say, look, we had a really good run, and now we're just gonna not try to be in the postseason every year. They're not going to do that, right? And the fan base isn't going to allow that. So what do they have to do? They have to get one of these hitters that you saw in the postseason, one of these guys who steps into the box and the pitcher gets a little nervous. They don't have that guy on their team right now. They have good hitters, but they have hitters that need a better bat, an elite bat, to raise up everybody else in the lineup. So how do they get back into the postseason? You got to go get one of those guys, and they don't come cheap, and they're not going to come for a little bit of money, and they're not going to come for a trade that doesn't cost you some serious prospects.
But I think you and your crack staff over there at the Post-Dispatch should do some number crunching on the best free agent signings ever, just in terms of all the teams. And I would think Matt Holliday is got to be, if not one, but one, two, or three right there in all of baseball ever since free agency started, because the rest of them mostly turn out to be bums, and there's a lot of dead money attached to all that.
You're right. Matt Holliday was one of the best, and he should be remembered as that, and not how, too often I think guys get remembered by their last year and not the most productive years. But they went out and got Matt Holliday because they were in need of that kind of player.
Right.
They needed somebody they needed an extra thump in their lineup, and that was kind of the last big, last big face of the order franchise move that we saw from this team, and that's what they need now. They need another Matt Holliday in his prime.
Yeah, but Matt Holliday.
They got to go out and get somebody, and it's probably not going to be through free agency because of just what you said. I mean, J.D. Martinez will be probably the hottest bat in free agency, and he comes with some rather significant questions. So we're talking about a trade that's going to declutter this 40-man roster that might tap into the exorbitant amount of outfielders the Cardinals have, but a trade that's gonna come with some risk too, because people don't let hitters with that profile get away for cheap anymore.
Yeah. What last question while we still have you, Ben? Luna winning the World Series down in Houston with so many connections to St. Louis. The owner being from St. Louis, Luna, and the Cardinals, and the Spygate and all that type of stuff. Is this a little bitter pill for the Cardinals to swallow?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, they would never admit that, but yeah, I don't think there's a lot of warm and fuzzy feelings between these two organizations, no matter what anyone says publicly. That was an ugly ordeal to go through. It was embarrassing on the Cardinals' end, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And especially when they're starting to feel the burn of not having certain draft picks. The Cardinals are a team that doesn't get to draft high in general because of where they finish usually.
Right.
They're not a team that's going to tank like the Astros did to get a World Series. At least they haven't shown any willingness to do that yet. So when you start losing draft picks, it's even more costly for a team that usually doesn't have very many good picks to begin with.
Interesting. All right, Ben Frederickson with us every Monday. This time works for you?
Yes, sir. It sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Are you ever gonna, are you gonna keep small timing us and calling us? Or are you gonna come into the studio, or what's going on there?
I told Willie I'll come in and meet you guys in person soon. I'll make it happen, and maybe I can bring you some donuts or coffee or something. Like that. You got a donut preference?
Tony Messer brings in steak and salad and lobster tails and the whole deal. I don't know what you guys doing in the sports department, but
well, I'll have to put a request into the union to check his salary. I'm not operating on the steak budget just yet.
Ben Frederickson with the Post-Dispatch and with us at KTRS. Ben, have a good week. Thanks.